I'll call to order this work session of the Pflugerville City Council on Tuesday, November 28th. Our first order of business is item 2A, a discuss only item. This is to conduct a presentation of the Pflugerville Community Development Corporation Quarter 4 financial report. I believe we have Amy Madison and Salome Soka who will be here to present to us.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hey, Charlie. I think I lost one.
You did.
Now we're no longer in session.
I don't have any issue with continuing taking the actions properly.
All right. Thank you.
Noted. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council. My name is Amy Madison, Executive Director of the Pflugerville Community Development Corporation. We're here this evening to present our final results of this final quarter. And with me I have Salome Zoka, who will give you one of the best presentations you've ever seen on a budget. Salome?
Is it showing on the screen?
The clicker's on the end.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll click if you want me to.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have the pleasure of presenting to you the FY23 year-end financial update for PCDC for the year ended September 30, 2023. Mayor, 2023 has been a rather interesting year for PCDC for a number of reasons, including the sales tax itself. We are aware of the economic environment we have been, and our sales tax in Pflugerville was also affected. We have seen our sales tax revenue falling 5% below what we budgeted. But I have to mention, Mayor, that for September, the sales tax number for the month of September itself is actually an estimated number. For the rest are the actual sales tax for the year. Cumulatively, we are falling 5% below. At this point, we didn't have the actual number for September. What was also interesting for 2023, Mayor, is that our interest income following the unprecedented interest rates movement area where we started at 3% and today we are sitting at 5.9%, we have seen our revenues in the interest rate really.
I'm so sorry. I was trying to ascertain. You were saying that something was the actual, and the estimate number. I think you said September.
That's right.
Where's that reflected, or are you saying that the actuals versus budget amount that's reflected in this graph right here, which is closed through 9/30/2023, is an actual estimate in itself?
Why?
Is that what you're trying to say?
What I'm trying to say is that the 9.4 is a cumulative actual sales tax except for the month of September.
The 94%. Okay.
94 is a percentage of the actual total for the whole year,
Okay.
compared to the budget of 10.1.
So I think what I heard you say is that that's 12 months worth of values in the sales tax, but the 12th month, September, is an estimated number included in that total.
Yes.
So that 94% may be up or down a little bit, but we're pretty honed in on it.
That's right. You might be aware that we always have 2 months lag in terms of the sales tax. Whatever
Yeah,
we're receiving now.
and that's what I was trying to. I was trying to figure out where exactly, because the estimate, but obviously what you can say is that that estimate isn't out of line with normal practices and procedures, given the fact of the lag that's from there as well. And you're saying, you're the SME, so if you're saying 94% is about accurate where you're looking from that's fine. I was just trying to figure out what number you're referring to and where that was in the graph.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but did you explain what other income is?
I'm on it right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Water park lease income is
thanks, man.
obvious 100%. It's a revenue that we receive from the Typhoon water park, and we got 100% for the other income. This is our interest from our investments. We have a portfolio of our funds. Some of the funds are invested in CDs. money markets, and prime, and so together we have earned some interest there. You will notice that there's a significant percentage, 949% from what we budgeted. We got, we budgeted 80,000 at this time, Mayor. We didn't have the opportunity to know what will happen to the interest rate, but since then we have taken some board decisions to involve our consultants to help us to estimate these numbers better. So 2024 has a better estimate. We had 80,000 because over the years we were within that estimate and we didn't know much about the interest rates. And that helped us really to somehow cushion what has fallen behind in terms of the sales tax. In the end, we have cushioned the deficit with the revenue that we have earned from the interest income.
Ready for next slide?
Actually, no. I'd like to ask, so if I'm looking at this correctly, we have a deficit of what we budgeted, correct?
What happened is with the interest rate specifically, we had made the decision to invest with Valley View, which is a consultant that the city
Oh,
also
okay.
uses
But
for.
I'm asking in general, according to this, it looks like we have a deficit, correct?
Yes.
From what was budgeted.
Well,
Yes.
so the actuals are better than the budget.
Yeah. What? I mean, what was budgeted, but we actually.
Yeah, we expected to spend more, and
Yeah.
we expected to make a little more too. But we ended up spending less and
Right.
making only a little bit.
So how are you gonna fix this for the coming year? Your budgeted, what you're budgeting, so that we don't have this sort of deficit, if I'm,
Well-
am I looking at that correctly?
Well, so we expected to lose 1.9, and instead we only lost 0.9.
Okay.
So
I see
we're
what
so
you're
we're
saying.
so we're
I
a
get
million
So
better
it-
than,
it-
we,
it's-
than we
so-
expected.
I'm looking at it completely.
No, no,
backwards.
it got me too. It
Yeah.
got me too. But we're a million better than we expected.
It's better than what it was expected.
Sarah, thank you.
And that's what the interest from the other income helped us to cushion that deficit. And with that, we have expenses that are showing that for the most part, debt service has been 100%, and administration and recruitment have fallen under, which means we have saved, spent less than the budget. But also we have spent significantly on the projects. You know how we have bought land and also closed on the road, giving us a 90% utilization against the budget. So this is a high-level summary of how we have performed. I have a few more slides that explain the sales tax story differently. If you don't mind, I can still show you those ones next. As I mentioned, our sales tax is 5%, or thereabouts below the target of 10.1 million, 100% on the water park income, but again on the interest, we have exceeded the budget by 949%. Next slide. So this is a rather interesting graph that we have come up with using our sophisticated Tableau. You will be very familiar with the graph at the bottom left. This is a graph that shows each month how much has been our sales tax. And if we compare to the past 2 years, you'll notice the green one represents the current year. In some months, we are actually above both 2022 and 2021. But there are a few months where we fell really below both 2021 and 2022. And that has been the story, giving us anxiety as to how we will end up. And because of that, we decided to come up with a different presentation of the same. And so I'll take you to the top part. This is what we call a 12 months trailing sales tax graph. What it is actually doing, instead of showing each month, we are showing the month plus the 11 months before it. And the green represents the 9 million each month. As we are adding a new month, we are adding the 11 months before it to make it annual. And when you plot it on a graph, it tells you a different story. Different from the fact that even as much as there are dips, but you see that we have always operated above the blue line, which is 2022. This story tells us that we are trending upwards despite the dips and ups over the years, giving us a little bit of comfort to say that we are trending upwards. And 2023 has faced challenges, but it is still trending above 2022, represented by the graph on top.
So, I have a question. And you're right. I mean, obviously, that story is a good story. I mean, because it shows what we believe is a positive trend moving forward, given the challenges of 2023 is probably a good way to convey that.
Yeah.
Are your computations and your analysis are they akin to what the city uses, or is it a separate kind of variation to go ahead and make these estimates?
No, these are the actual sales tax that we have received from this city.
I'm so sorry. My apologies. So when you're coming up with your estimates, right? I
Right.
mean, that's something that we usually oftentimes tell Serena and staff. We're pretty impressed that their estimates tend to be pretty accurate, even given there's some deficits given the, like I said, we have a rocky economy right now as well. But is it the same? Is it the same formula, like the same mathematical formula utilized by y'all that's the city uses in its computations? Because there are some other governmental entities that are not necessarily as accurate in their analysis, or anywhere near that.
Yes, for the good part is that we try to compute using historical information and focusing the future. But for some reason, when the sales tax report that comes from the system, you see it, it is pretty much following exactly the same pattern.
But
It's
the targets, the budget, those numbers are based on information provided from the city as well. We're singing from the same sheet,
Yes.
so to speak. We're saying, all right, the city says this is how much sales tax we expect to get in the city, so we're using those same numbers as the basis for the sales tax. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we do our own internal calculations, but we compare with the city. The city will estimate the sales tax, how they're estimating it, but when we compare it to ours, it seems like we are following each other very, very closely.
Well, we'd like to think that the PCDC sales tax revenue is half of the city. The city gets 1%, the PCDC gets half a cent. But there are some differences in boundaries nowadays. So I know it can't be exactly half, but I think we use the city's numbers, the same data that the city uses to generate our projections at PCDC and the budget.
Does that make
They-
sense?
they
Because my question is that if you're using the same source and consequently the same computations, even though there's variables and what can or can't be done regarding the respective entities, you're still using the same formula to get something that's akin to your analysis conclusion.
The city sends us a sales tax report every month, and when we get that, they have the estimated amount that's remaining. And we utilize that information in putting together our reports.
That's exactly it.
Next slide.
My question, maybe I'm addressing this in the wrong place, but the pattern in 2021 and 2022 seems to be nearly identical. The pattern in 2023 seems to be very different. And if memory serves, 2021 and 2020 had basically the same pattern in terms of the months that were up and down. Do you have any explanation for why the pattern changed in 2023?
People return to work. I mean, I think it's been a very different. 2023 has been very different from the last couple of years and just how people have operated. And then I would say that even last year, maybe toward the end, maybe people started getting out more. It was still analogous to what you saw with people operating in 2020 and 2021.
So from a
that's what
sales
that's
tax
why.
collection perspective, there are some businesses that report monthly and some that report quarterly. And what it looks like to me is maybe the comptroller, I don't know if it's a function of the dates, but perhaps some of those quarterly reporting and remittance from those businesses got shifted a little bit. It looks like 2023 is just, almost a month off on those quarterly values. That'd be my explanation for why those numbers look different. But as you can see, as you said earlier, we are growing, not as much as we expected, but much more than last year. I think it's related to those quarterly reportings more than anything. I don't know, Amy, if you have any opinion on that.
Well, I think we just had some ups and downs too. unexpected interest rate changes, and that kind of slowed down the public a little bit, and I think those impacted as much as anything. But they also impacted positively, as you saw in our interest rates that we were able to bring in. So it was kind of offset. But yes,
I was
it
about
was
to say,
different.
you get both sides of it, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
CDs and everything else right there, improve that, but the other end. But and to be fair, I think that from the standpoint, from a Fed standpoint, they did a lot better than I thought they would regarding that quote unquote soft landing. So it's surprising. Our economy is much more robust than most of the rest of the world.
We just felt that the report we wanted to put together would give you a little better idea of what's happening, and it's helped us this year to do some better predicting and not worry as much. As long as we were above the blue cloud, we were sailing.
The blue cloud.
That's right. So with that, takes us to this other expenses part of the story where we are seeing that, as mentioned, the expenses have fallen below the red line, which is the budgeted number. We like to not to exceed the budget for the most part. And obviously, this graph also shows us that the majority of the expenditure is in projects, followed by the debt service. Within debt service, we are looking at payments towards the road bonds, 3/8 agreements, and also the water park loan payments that we have. So those are the two biggest expenditure items: administrative and then recruitment and retention.
What do you attribute to the savings, or thereof? I guess is one way to put it. For the 26% for the retention or recruitment activities, was there just something that y'all usually attend that you didn't attend? Did you just get something cheaper on the low to help out?
No, actually, it had to do with the project that we were trying to do in this current year. That was actually going to be a study that we were doing, and we had estimated for that, and it ended up that it just did not make. So and we also were looking at lower sales tax, so we were comfortable with that. And if before you ask the expenses in the next column, we also had some reduction in some of our projects too. There were 3 incentive programs that either were amended or did not meet the grant. So that had an impact as well on our projects. But we had some healthy work in those projects. I love this slide. I'm just going to say I love all the colors. But this shows you where the deposits are in different banks, and I'll let Salome take it from there. But I think this is the best one of all.
Yeah, so this is like our, I would say, balance sheet or fund balances. From this graph, you're noticing different colors representing the different portfolio of our investments, the majority of which is our investment in the tax pool. That's where most of the funds are. You'll notice when you started in October, our funds were sitting at 17 million, and they have been rising until when we got to the month of May, where we made some major acquisition of land, and it dipped to 15 million, and it dipped further towards July when we closed on the impact. But since then, as you noticed in the last month, the funds are starting to pick up again. We are now sitting at 17 million. So that is our total fund balance represented by various investment portfolio that we have at the moment.
Salome, the changes that we see month over month, is that indicative of interest gainings?
That, but also savings. Remember, when we receive sales
But
tax,
also
savings from the sales tax income, it flows in every month, but we don't always spend all of it. So some of it drops into the fund balance if it's not used.
Got you. And then what's the big negative drop that looks like about $5 million? What was that one?
That's a purchase of land that we acquired, and also the closing of the impact right of way. Those are the major project expenditure that happened this year.
Thank you.
And this is the final, just showing us how our funds, assuming we started at zero with the sales tax revenue, took us to 9.4 million, and water park 1.2 they paid towards September, and with the income from the investments, we went up. We call this a waterfall, but then it dropped when just a different presentation of the same story, that our money went mostly towards the projects and the rest of it, giving us the 917 negative net, which could have been 1.9 if it wasn't for the revenue from the interest. Just telling the same story, repeating it again in a different way. Next slide. And that marks the end of our presentation, if we can take questions.
Thank you.
What are the plans with the money that we have left over?
So generally,
Christmas gifts.
for 2023, it was
Gifts.
each year, depending on how much we have spent, whatever remains falls down under into the fund balance. But if not, especially like last year where we had 900 more expenditure, that means we funded it from our fund balance.
All right. No other questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 2B, a presentation and update from Encore. And with us this evening, we have Armando Perez.
Don't they ever send anybody with you?
They don't.
The Lone Ranger.
Remember,
I've asked.
one riot, one ranger.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager. Armando Perez, Area Manager with Encore. Today, I plan on giving you an update on a couple of items, recent outage activity here in Pflugerville, and then also a review of kind of winter preparedness as we approach winter 2024. So, with that,
We'll get you to the presentation.
oh, that's it right here? I'm sorry. Okay. All right, so what this slide here shows is kind of a recap of what we've seen, kind of big picture throughout the year, post-Storm Mara, the storm that we experienced January, February timeframe. And so if you look at spring, summertime, we did see a lot of activity, primarily on the east side of town, east of 130.
Oh, we know.
And the major factor for that outage activity was due to the improvements that we were doing in the area. You might have seen our trucks out there for basically months, for a while, working within the right-of-way to install new facilities, new lines, exiting the substation that's at Pecan Street, working its way up north through Wise, and then eastbound on Pecan as well. And so the duration of that construction added additional exposure to the way our safety and switching scheme works on existing infrastructure. And so that added that extra exposure that anytime there was a mild or severe weather event, that it had a major impact, where we would typically see a couple of meters be impacted. We were seeing hundreds, if not thousands, of meters being impacted. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast when we're trying to improve facilities within the compounds of existing facilities, dealing with energized lines. Next, we had August through October.
So Armando, along those lines, so, I mean, that's the thing we're telling our constituents, that you were doing improvements now while the weather was good before all hell breaks loose, wintertime and everything else from there. You said it added additional exposure while you're doing it regarding these intricacies. Have those exposures been enclosed, so consequently they won't be as affected by weather moving forward? Or
Yeah, so I guess when I mention additional exposure, what happens is we have to make that line safe for our crews and resources to work those lines, because the lines stay energized. And so when there's an outage, or if the lines see a fault, it doesn't know the difference between a squirrel and an actual worker that's working that line. And so what it's going to do is going to trip the entire line. And so once the work is complete, everything goes back to normal operations, and so you won't have that level of exposure at that point.
Basically, the tripping mechanism becomes less sensitive if you know there's nothing there but squirrels.
It'll operate. So During the construction, we don't want the power to try to snap back on. We want it to stay out because we don't know if it was a worker that was working it. Day-to-day operations, it's going to go through its iterations to try to come back on its own and just operate the way it should. Any other questions? All right, so then August through October, we did see a uptick on weather activity ranging from rain doesn't typically impact us, but we did see a lot of severe weather with lightning, heavy lightning. We also had there towards the end of September a hailstorm. That didn't necessarily impact Pflugerville too much, but it did impact the upper communities. And I've listed two notable outages that we experienced during that time. The one in August, the 8th, North Pflugerville, that was around the living spaces corridor. That outage lasted about 11 hours. It was to underground facilities. Typically for underground facilities, the restoration effort is going to take a lot longer. We have to work through identifying the exact location of that fault. And then we have to make the proper arrangements to call in locates and dig and expose the lines wherever we need to do that. So that was in August the 8th. Shortly after August 21st, on a different line, South Pflugerville, we had another major event. This was along the Wells Branch Heatherwild intersection. We had underground wire that failed. That's a very busy intersection. The wire that failed crossed Heatherwild east to west, and the restoration for that was more extensive than we anticipated. And so it lasted approximately 23 hours.
What was the cause of the failure?
It was a underground wire failure. So several things can cause that. It could be whether there's we call it tree development within the wire that forms that causes a failure. It could be lightning that didn't have a direct impact immediately when the storm took, and then over time it kind of developed and caused that failure. But we do take that in. The process that we go through is take that wire in and we send it to our lab for review to assess kind of what happened. But we do code it as underground failure because it did require us to basically change that dip that went from the west side of Heatherwild to the east side of Heatherwild and replace it out.
Okay. So kind of what I'm hearing up to now, before you get into November, is the failures that you've had, the outages that you've had, are aside from the construction, is basically acts of nature, which we have no control over, right? And these are things that you anticipate. Well, let's say you don't anticipate it, but you know that there's a probability of some failure somewhere, whether it's your system or anybody else's system, based on how the infrastructure is laid, where it's laid, the age of the infrastructure as well. I mean, there are a number of factors that, I mean, is there a way that you keep up with those particular aspects of the infrastructure, or just when it happens, you react?
Well, we react, but we do track the cost of the outage for every event. And so if there's a pattern of sequence of events, we can track that and identify, okay, we need to look at this at the actual root cause. We can't just keep going out there and replacing that same span of wire, right? It could be lightning. If we see that lightning keeps striking a particular location or area that keeps blowing a particular device, we can make those analysis, and I'll highlight some of that stuff here in a minute, to make sure that we are strategic about the solution that we apply that ultimately improves reliability versus just being reactive every time.
Right.
But to your point, yes, a lot of the reaction for us to go and restore power is due to elements out of our control, primarily weather,
Exactly.
wildlife, and then vegetation.
Well, and I guess I'm kind of laying the groundwork for that. I don't know what you're going to say in November moving forward, is that, we see on social media, hey, power is out. Why isn't the city doing something? What's Encore's problem? And we don't realize it's just sometimes an act of nature that's unpredictable. I mean, when you have bad weather, it doesn't matter what the weather is, there's always a probability of something happening, whether it's, the electrical failure or cable failure, for example, all the time. And I think our citizens need to be more aware of the fact that Encore's not perfect, and you can't be.
And I'll add that at any given day, we'll have an outage across our
Sure.
system. Today is a beautiful day, not a rain cloud in the sky, and we likely had some folks that experienced an outage due to whatever element, right? A squirrel that got into something, or maybe another transformer failed somewhere else.
Exactly.
But yes, to your
And
point.
a lot of these features that you have that are built in, like your transformers and then the other fail-safe system you're talking about, they're built in to protect not only the individuals working, if they happen to be working in and around that particular infrastructure, but protect the infrastructure itself.
Correct. Yep.
And I know nothing about utilities, so
About that August 21st, seemed to be the unusually long one. Was that unusually long just because of the location and how much traffic goes through Wells Branch and Heather Wild? Did that delay the repair?
It was a couple of things. So that particular segment of town, the way everything's tied together, we have to coordinate switching. And that means that we work with our operation centers to see how we can switch load to make sure that while we're trying to isolate and take care of those repairs, that we're not impacting another area of town. And so getting that switching coordination, it's pretty intricate. It's pretty elaborate, and making sure that everything's done. Again, making sure safety is probably the number one thing. Making sure that whatever we switch, that we don't have someone else working downline or upline that could potentially be exposed to a hazard. So switching is an element that plays into the restoration effort. And then also the actual labor. So in that one, we had typically we have a spare conduit that we use as a means of rapidly restoring power. We'll pull the new wire through there, and then get the lights back on, and we can remove the old wire. In this particular case, we didn't have a spare conduit, and so we had to go through the efforts of making clear of the existing conduit to run the new wire. One thing that we typically always do as part of our restoration effort is to make sure that we restore as many folks as we can, and then try to isolate so that the outage itself is minimal. It's still going to impact some folks, so there's a good chance that there were some customers that saw every bit of that 23 hours, but there's also a really good chance that many of them just saw that quick hour or 2 hour assessment time frame, and then they were back on. Leading up to November, this is obviously the most recent activity with November the 11th. That particular outage, again, underground wire. This wire actually went across 130, feeding towards the west side of 130, and it impacted the Stonehill Shopping Center and then some of the apartment complexes that are in their area. The outage itself was about 2 hours, but the actual restoration that took place to get that resolved was well over 10 hours. Wow. This is an opposite example where we had enough applications in place that we were able to isolate and get everybody back on, but still make it safe for us to do some of the work.
So does your hour outage, that includes the response time? Let's say power goes out, somebody calls you, it takes you an hour to get out to start working on it. So that hour is part of that outage. Is
correct?
That
That includes response time. The minute we see it's offline, up to the point that we restore either fully with full repairs or to isolate the outage.
And you know from your internal systems before anybody gives you a call that where power has gone out, especially something as large as the Stonehill outage, where there was a large area, you get an alert immediately through your computer system.
We do.
Right?
We track it. Our operation centers are manned 24/7, 365 around the clock, holidays, you name it. But we still encourage folks to use the app, to call it in. It just adds that extra level of verification. The very next week, on the 18th, we had another outage again on the east side of town, on the east side of 130. That outage was approximately 3 hours. This one, the cause of the outage, we did have some overhead wire that burned down. It was a result of a customer that was doing his own tree trimming and I believe a limb that he trimmed fell on our line that caused it to burn down.
Right in the middle of some major football games going on.
It was Saturday evening, yeah. And so obviously, we encourage folks to not get within the lines, and this may have not been within the lines, but in the process of doing the trimming, some way or another, it landed on our wires, and it caused that. And so again, the 3 hours includes from the moment the lights went out, and we don't know exactly what the damage is in the field. Our operators try to do what they can remotely, but then we do dispatch boots on the ground to go out there and visually do a walkthrough of the area where we see that the damage is located and identify exactly what happened. And in that particular case, that's what it was. And so that one was about 3 hours. The overhead restorations typically will be, depending on the level of damage and scope, will be a little faster than underground because you can see it, you can get to it much faster. So it does help us restore power a little faster.
The above ground is a little more vulnerable to damage, but it's easier
Correct.
to fix when it is damaged.
Correct. And then the latest is going to be on the 21st, and that one was northwest of town. And when I say northwest, that's kind of south of 45, had the Wild Pflugerville Parkway area. That outage wasn't necessarily long term, but it was still an 8-minute outage, and you probably picked up that has an unknown cause. And so what happens there, the system usually will try to operate on its own. And so when it operates on its own, it could be, depending on the type of switch that's triggered, it could be a blink of a light. You may see a couple of blinks and you're good. You never had an outage. But every now and then, if that event rolls up to a larger device, that device is going to trip open, and the lights are going to be out. And our operators are always going to try to restore remotely first. That's just the fastest way and most efficient way for us to get the lights back on. And in this particular case, it took 8 minutes for them to see, kind of test it remotely to make sure that it wasn't picking up that there's actual damage in the field, and then the lights came on. And that's the process that goes first before we actually dispatch resources. Had there been actual damage in the field, we would have ultimately assigned a ticket to a truck, and that truck would have gone out to the field and then made the repairs from there. Any questions on? Okay, so we've been busy. Obviously, there's a lot of happening here in Pflugerville and the surrounding communities. Growth everywhere, both residential and non-residential. This kind of just wanted to take a minute to highlight some of the improvements that we've been doing in an effort to keep up with the growth and also improve our reliability. And it starts with we've touched about 18 miles within the city to improve the reliability. That could be reconductoring, meaning that we changed an existing wire to a larger wire size, or adding a new line to the system to help alleviate some of that load. In the process of doing that, we also improve or modify the equipment that's touched within those bounds. And so if there's switching that needs to be updated, we do that there and then, just to try to be efficient with our time and our resources. We've added additional equipment as well, distribution automation. That's typically, obviously, if we can handle an outage remotely, is always just going to be the most efficient and the most impactful versus sending a crew to the field. And so we've made those improvements the last 12, 24 months. And then lastly, we also perform line inspections. And the result of those line inspections were basically maintenance improvements where they were deemed necessary. That could have been a cross-arm change-out. That could have been an actual pole that was showing signs of needing to be replaced. So numerous things. And that wasn't necessarily specific to one location of town. That was across town. And so for that particular, the outcome of that, we were either knocking on homes, letting them know, hey, we're going to be in your backyard. We got to replace that pole. Or working with the businesses that were impacted during or after hours. And then lastly, obviously, our planning never ends. We're always planning for the growth, and so we use a lot of the feedback that we get either from PCDC on potential new customers that are coming in, or even just the analysis that we do on the grid itself, on kind of seeing where the load is picking up, where we need to make those improvements to keep up with it.
So when you say improve outage response or restoration times, Does that include various redundancies, or what kind of material or items would you utilize to help with that?
So the distribution automation, when we do switches, that, a fuse, typically a fuse, when a fuse sees an outage, is just going to blow open, and that's going to always require a field personnel to go out there and close that barrel after they verify that nothing's damaged. The distribution automation, the switches, they go through their own self iterations to try to restore power without actually having to have someone go out in the field. And so, for example, say we get a gust of heavy winds, not a storm, but just a gust of heavy winds that may cause a limb from, 5 feet away to just kind of touch the line. A fuse may blow in that scenario. A distribution automation switch may go through an iteration because that branch is just going to touch and back off, and we're done, and the lights stay on. So that level of resiliency. Here, just kind of highlighting that our preparedness is really year-round. We prepare for the hot summer days, and then obviously with the recent weather cycles that we've seen, we prepare for the winter events pretty year-round, basically. Doing from maintenance inspections, infrareding equipment to see what needs to get replaced, and try to be, proactive where the opportunities are available. Our operation centers and our engineering team always have eyes on the load demand that we see, and then that helps drive the improvements that we ultimately implement to the field to make sure that we maintain resiliency and reliability. And we also, with the winter storms that we've had, we look at material as well, housing material at the adequate level, so make sure that we are prepared for what may happen.
So, I know that ERCOT's already come out and I guess they're just trying to get ahead of it. So that they're prepared to do rolling blackouts in worst case scenario already. What's the projection that we're looking at? We're looking at the grid again, not being able to. I know that's not with. Let's be clear for the audience. You have no control over that, nor what happens to the preparedness of the grid. Nonetheless, you have to depend on it for the allocation and reception of electricity to the greater population. So how is that looking right now? Is that looking for you're going in? Oh, we're going to be good. Are you apprehension? Should we all just be getting our generators ready right now?
So because we don't generate the power, we don't know where that's going to fall. But part of our training and preparedness is to be prepared should that call come or not. And so our operation centers go through pretty extensive training a couple times a year to make sure that they are honed in on how to dispatch the potential rolling outages. We do take direction through ERCOT on that initiative, and so it won't be Encore that triggers that. Excuse me, that triggers that request. And so, should it come, I'm confident that we will implement within our powers what we need to do to do that. But we can't necessarily say which way it's ultimately going to go.
See, that's how you respond to a question like that without calling out a partner.
The partner's still hanging out on the vine.
Well, now, some of the outages, in fairness, some of the outages were due to like extreme amounts of ice collecting on wires, and I think in one case pulling a tower down. Is there anything you can do to prepare for impacts such as that?
Yeah, so if we're talking strictly about just the impacts of a severe weather event to our facilities, we try to do the best we can to obviously design and implement our stuff based on certain factors, safety factors for sure. But not knowing what level of ice accumulation we're going to get, how long the temperatures are going to be at below 10 degrees, we really don't know. But we do have a lot of engineering that goes into our standards, not just our wire, overhead or underground, our equipment, and then even our infrastructure that's overhead. So we do take a lot of effort in making sure that that's equipped the way it should be.
See, I think you could just increase the current on those lines and they'd heat up and become de-icing. Yeah.
So we do have different voltages. We have our high voltage lines, which are our transmission lines, and then we have all of our lower voltage lines, our distribution lines, that helps us actually get the service out to all of our residential and business customers.
Just sort of an ancillary question. When you talked about your inventory has increased. How do you procure your inventory? Do you have a low bid process where you buy from vendors? And if so, do you worry about the quality of the materials that you're pulling on a low bid?
That has its own department that they manage that, but I'm sure that they go through whatever sourcing mechanics they go through, and then having the set number of vendors to make sure that they are prepared to either uptake or settle where they're at with material intake.
Thank you.
Okay, and then lastly, this is just kind of highlighting on the legislative side the impacts that we comply with now with Senate Bill 3 and the weatherization. So we do go through weatherization efforts at substations to make sure that those are ready for the weather. Substations being the kind of the source that distributes the distribution power. And then also making sure that our records and our system is up to date on what cities deem critical infrastructure. We certainly don't want an issue to compound if there is a weather event that impacts power that trickles over to now you have lift stations and water pumps that are impacted or hospitals that are impacted. And so we do go through those measures to make sure that those accounts are properly updated. The call center, making sure that they're equipped and that we have the appropriate bandwidth with our third-party suppliers to make sure that we can absorb additional intake if it leads to that. And then lastly, one thing that's not listed on here is going to be, we do have a new tool that we released for our cities. It's called My Encore Municipal. And what it is, it's a platform for city staff to be able to use to go in there during any weather event and see the power impact on city infrastructure, city facilities. And so it's a dashboard, if you will, that a city staff can go through and view live information during a storm and see, I've got 3 lift stations that are impacted, or I've got my water treatment plant is impacted, and it lets them kind of see restoration times that are projected, and it also gives them the ability to go and report an outage from that same platform. With that, I'm happy to take any questions y'all may have.
I don't know what you know off the top of your head about the critical load, but I'm sure you recall a few years ago we lost power out at the water treatment plant, and since then we've got now a second source of power. Plus we've got an emergency generator on the premises there. What are the highest critical load items in Pflugerville from the Encore perspective? The hospital, the city hall, the fire and police departments?
I believe we have obviously all the critical lift stations, obviously the wastewater treatment plant, the surface water treatment plant, city hall, PD, the fire departments, and then I'd have to review the list to see what it is, but we vet that through the city first to let us know what's deemed critical. And if we have a lift station that is not marked critical, but there is justification to get that to be critical, there's an opportunity to provide insight on that so that we can make that adjustment as well.
Okay.
Any other
Sounds good.
questions, Council? No? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Armando.
Good
Great to
Lord
see you here.
willing, if the creek don't rise, we won't have any need to talk to you about this kind of trouble for
I'll
years to come.
I'll bring company next time.
You always do a good job, brother.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Always
Our,
a pleasure to see you.
Next presentation is the municipal court, Ruth Sandoval, and the judge.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. It's been a year, almost next month, since the last time when the guys hired me and appointed me to this court and to this beautiful city. So, let's go with this.
The building looks familiar.
There you go. So we're going to talk a little bit of 2 important things that I want to share with you. The first one is we come a long way from when I first came into the court. And I remember when you were talking to me about technology and utilizing our software and improving and all that. And I'm happy to report to you that I feel that we have accomplished that. Now, we come from a day when the tickets were entered manually, one by one, and now the clerks were trained and they do everything utilizing our software with Stillman when it takes to a step for 2 or 3 steps to bring the tickets and make them available to our defendants to process. So I firmly believe that convenience fosters compliance with our court system. So the Pflugerville Municipal Court now counts with innovative solutions. We use what we have available. We implemented convenience to our defendants by making it available 24/7 for them to go online or in our webpage to process their tickets and reducing the number of non-compliance warrants and additional issues with breaking the law. So that is one part that I want to talk to you, and the other part also is about staff. As you know, I'm certified court clerk manager with the state, and also I have my level 3 with the Municipal Court Education Center. So that was my second goal also, to educate my clerks and give them the tools for them to do a better job, to assess and with superior customer service also. The first part that I want to talk to you is about one of my clerks. For the first time, they were able to attend in July. 2 of my clerks attended a 32-hour seminar with the Texas Municipal Court Clerk Education Center. We've been giving them the tools to improve and to learn what they do. And I'm very happy to report that just yesterday we have a report that one of my clerks became a level 1, and she's going through the process of finalizing that. So I'm very proud to share that information with you before we go back into the technology. She's here. Okay, so Marcelle Stevens. You want to come over here? She is my other clerks are still working on that, but like I said, that I'm very proud. I'm so proud of her for doing that. It took a lot of work. They've been preparing really hard, putting time, spending with their family to do this. We've been giving them the tools, like I said, so I'm very proud to be part of that, and I firmly believe that it makes a difference on what we do. So she's our first level 1 that the city actually has. I mean, I hired a level 2. She's right now on maternity leave. She's not here, but like I said, she was hired a level 2. So to me, I take a lot of pride on making sure that our clerks, our staff, takes interested on that and they understand the importance on that. So going back to our technology, the municipal court now comes with innovative solutions. We use right now what we have. We're still utilizing Encode level 9. Next spring, we'll be able to start working implementing that. But with what we have text notifications for our defendants, which let them know when a ticket has been filed. We send automated phone calls that let them know when a payment plan is due or when a payment is due. We have notifications for them when it's time for them to attend court because they're scheduled for arraignment. So all of that has improved our compliance. Our tickets have increased at least 25% more, and I think I attribute that is part of
That is
utilizing
curious. What do you attribute that to?
I'm sorry?
What do you attribute that to?
I don't know if it is because they enter the tickets into the computer in the system. We automatically get that. I don't know. I'm still working with the data, trying to get the numbers together to see why it's up, but it's at least 25% more tickets.
Yeah, that's a pretty significant jump.
Correct.
I think we're just headed back towards pre-COVID levels.
It might be that
We
too.
dropped significantly
during that.
Are we also seeing an increase in code issues, or are these typically traffic tickets?
No, it's more traffic.
No, they're traffic.
It's more traffic than anything, exactly.
Now, someone next to you may disagree, but
The way I'm seeing people drive around.
Now, because of that also, our core dockets, we have the second Wednesday and Tuesday of each month, but we also, with the assistance of our new associate judge, we have a third docket, which on that docket, instead of having 150 cases a month, we're having about 200. With additional 50 cases on that third docket, that associate judge is helping us take care of that. As you know, we have teen court dockets, juvenile dockets, pretrial dockets, video, show cause, bench trial, jury trial. In addition to that, I like to say that the convenience on our defendants has increased also, and it reflects that in our collections, and has reduced the number of warrants that we're issuing. I'm sorry. The next thing is we really want to talk to you, to make it nice and short, about the specific technology that we have. Again, we had increased online payments. In the past, the defendant could only make a full payment online. Now we added extensions. If they want to do an extension, they can go online, and if they qualify, they can request the fancy driving too. We have an interactive voice response, which the software provided for free, which is an 8800 number. We do a good number of emails. Defendants can also submit the request to set cases for court by email. They can submit defensive driving, anything through email, which in the past we were not utilizing that, and again, the text notifications. We do want to highlight also with Judge Sheehan, which is, I like to report that she's the newest member of Texas Municipal Court Clerks Education staff. She's going to share our Teen Court program success stories, and she's going to tell you a little bit more of that.
I did have one question before that.
Yes, go ahead.
So where do we get a copy of your, where's the line, legal information versus legal advice presentation?
No, right? Yes, I was so happy to be part of the faculty that day where two of my clerks were, participating on that first seminar. That right when I was hired, that was the first thing I presented to them, and I gave them my whole presentation. I said, "This is the first thing I want you to learn. It is a difference between providing information and giving legal advice, and not only that, it is on the penal code. It is against the law. I mean, we can get charged with a Class C misdemeanor, so it can be up to a Class B if we provide legal information versus just providing options available to us. So that's the difference."
Thank you so much. I wanted to apologize. I've only seen you in action, so I called you a judge as well. So maybe that's your calling for later. So I thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Judge?
Good evening, everyone. And I just have to start by pointing out that Ruth has really just addressed the tip of the iceberg of her contributions to the court, what she's accomplished. What she's not told you is she stepped into a very challenging position and has spent long work achieving these. Her dedication to the improvement of the court is just beyond anything. It cannot be overstated. She's doing an amazing job. And I can say with confidence that thanks to her process and her procedures that she's implemented, we're functioning at the highest level of efficiency that certainly I've ever seen. And it's reflected not only in satisfaction and happiness of staff, but also of our defendants and citizens. And then it's been felt everywhere. So I'd like to give her a heartfelt thank you for all the hard work that she's done. Anyway, on to Teen Court. You guys have heard me give the spiel 100 times, so I'll keep it to a minimum. We are back in full swing for the semester with 11 volunteers. We are doing an average of about 4 to 5 cases a month with our master jury panel system. And due to some last-minute staffing changes, we ended up sticking with that for this year. However, Judge Roth and I are going to do a trial of a mock trial procedure we're going to try and do. And mock trial is a little different, if you're not familiar with it, from the teen court is hearing, of course, the real life sentencing cases. Mock trial is where the teams are given kind of scenarios, fictional cases where they actually try the entire case. And throughout the state, there's several mock trial teams that compete all over the place, and we'd love to see whether these kids could be, pushed into being ready to take that on as a challenge. It does help the kids build trial skills similar to the attorney advocacy program, and it's a lot of fun. So, after that, we do have a treat for you tonight. We have a video where you can hear about teen court from the participants themselves.
Kids are amazing.
They are.
Along the way and the way we all interacted with each other was honestly magical for me, and I'm guided again because it's just so fascinating to see all the different kinds of stories and different types of people.
Everyone who was volunteering seemed, very excited to be in the program and like it was something that they genuinely wanted to do, which was refreshing.
The first go around was a little bit scary because I felt not scared, but kind of intimidated because I was very new to the process. But luckily, a lot of the people around me knew about it and they helped me through it. And it was just a really nice way to just learn about how other people in my community, how I could better benefit them. And it really helped me to be more empathetic and really understand other people's situations, as well as put me in a position where I felt like I could help them and I could better my community.
The people here are lovely and everyone's nice, and it's not too difficult. There's not a lot of pressure on you personally since it's a big panel of people. So you all just you take it together, you work together, and I feel like if you enjoy group work and you want to be more outspoken, I feel like this would be a good opportunity for you.
What I like about teen court is that I think it provides a very positive opportunity for people who are being charged with misdemeanor. And I think that it's really good for our communities because it's focusing on rehabilitative justice, not punitive justice. I just want people to know that the people who are volunteering on the court, the people who want to be here, they're not going to judge you or make you feel bad about yourself. We're very impartial, and most of the time we're very sympathetic to people who are just honest.
I think that teen court allowed me to see that these kids are kind of just like me. They're human and they make mistakes, but luckily we're able to help them through their mistakes and help guide them.
Teen Court is a program for everyone. We want your involvement and your perspective and your insight. I really encourage you to apply for our program as a volunteer. And if you're a defendant in my court, please don't hesitate. Please come be a part of the program and learn and grow with us. We accept applications for our Teen Court program twice a year, for the fall and the spring, and we would love to have yours.
This is why I'm here.
Along the way and the way we all interact with
Very nice.
Thank you all so much.
It's nice. Judge Sheehan, I know that you, I don't know what's the right word, adjudicate, you serve as a judge in several jurisdictions.
Yes.
And you mentioned how great our organization is. Can you tell me how we compare to those other organizations and why we're the best?
Of course, yes. Well, what I love about our community here is that the willingness of the teens to accept responsibility and to engage with the teen court. In some of my other jurisdictions, I find the parents eager to step in and write a check. And those teens I tend to see back more often.
So I'm not quite sure who to address this to, Ruth or the judge, but magistration. So I know that what happened previously was that the city of Austin and the Austin used to do magistration for the entire region, working for them particularly during the pandemic, but that's come back to the local entities is what they're looking at doing. Have we worked on a process to make sure that we have the applicable magistration and the coverage necessary to have it executed, or is that still something that we're working in the process of?
We haven't been asked to do magistrations in some time since they closed the holdover cell. Typically, when they're arresting someone and bringing them downtown, that's where that's processed. I think once if they have that up and running again, that's when we would step in and do that. There's been a few cases where we've been asked in special circumstances when a defendant's being held somewhere, a hospital or something, but it's pretty unusual.
You're saying that you have not been asked to do any magistration recently?
Magistrations, yes, the actual going over the rights and setting the bonds in person.
Rudy's gonna fix it.
Like,
We
am I
don't
missing
wanna do it,
something?
right? No, I'm just kidding.
So, if you're done.
Yeah, well, I'll talk offline.
I'm trying to remember when we awarded Tyler Technologies the contract to do the upgrade. And I presume the upgrade is from Encode 9 to Encode 10.
That's correct.
That's over a year ago. I'm thinking maybe closer to 2 years ago. What's going on there?
What happened is that we're doing Munis first. Right now, we're interfacing with finance, and we're working on Munis. So for some reason, uh, the Encode 10 got pushed back until the spring. And I believe that that's because we're going by departments. Um, it is kind of complicated to do every department at the same time. We've been getting a lot of training. At first, we were trying to see if Munis work with the municipal courts to do any modules. That way, the entire city, it's best to be in one software for the entire city. Usually, the police department, they stand alone on something different, but with my previous experience, it's best if we are on the same software. Unfortunately, Munis doesn't have any module for municipal courts. We're still moving to version 10.
Okay, so I'm just trying to make sure I understand because you know all the applications better than I do. So Munis is Tyler Technologies.
It's Tyler Technologies also.
Encode 9 is not Tyler.
Encode 9 is Tyler
It is Tyler.
Technology. Encode 10 is Tyler Technology.
Okay, so
Munis
it's all
is
Tyler.
Tyler. It's all Tyler.
Okay,
Yes.
and so the Munis part of it is more of the administrative interfacing with finance, finding out tickets and
Correct.
fines, and getting the online payment portal stuff.
Correct.
The Encode part of it is the part that ties into PD to get all the warrant information and tickets and all
We
that.
interface with PD. That is correct, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Now, for example, for Spielman, which those are the tickets, right now we do.
Okay, who does Spillman? Who makes that?
Spielman is not Tyler.
Right.
So
Okay.
I think it's Motorola who owns
Spillman.
Spillman.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. I'll find it.
Yes, but yes, we are moving forward to that to version 10 within Tyler Technologies. But like I said, we've been getting a lot of training, mainly on for the rest of the city with Munis, and we will get there also.
It just seems like it's been a long time.
It's just budgeted on our last fiscal year, so I don't know if it's been more than a year or two. All I know is that it's within this fiscal year that we actually purchased that. So I'm not familiar with having it a year or two before. All I know is that we got the budget and the money to implement it on this fiscal year, and it's scheduled to be implemented in March, in the spring.
Well, if you need anyone, to be hit with a stick, the mayor's really good at that.
Okay. Mayor?
Yes.
And another reason, if I may say that, is when I came on board and I teach my clerks and my staff about that, I implemented so many changes that their head were spinning. So in all honesty, I am grateful that when I'm moving forward to version 10, until I get my clerks the certification level that I want them to learn about core, before moving to a software that is going to be completely different than version 9. Even though it's Tyler Technologies, version 9 is going to be completely different than 10. Concept is the same because court and legislation and criminal court procedures are the same procedures, but the software is going to be completely different. I feel that my team is very comfortable with what we're doing now. I can feel how my team is coming together to what we do. They feel comfortable coming to me, and I'm doing cross-training across the board on everything that the courts involve, all our procedures. When I came on board, one clerk was in charge of doing tickets and tickets only and nothing else. If she was not there a day of the week or she was going on vacation, the tickets were there. So now, like I said, I can feel that appreciation of learning every part of the core, growing as a profession, and I feel that they're gonna do a career. Because if the day that I retire, I feel that if they wanna apply for the job, they're gonna be ready. They're gonna be ready to take over.
I like that.
Yes.
Judge Sheehan, always good to see you. I know that there'd been talk in the past about becoming a court of record. Is that still a thing that we're looking at, or?
I'd love to see that happen. There's a lot that has to be done to get ready for it, but and I think we need to make these changes first. But I would love to see that happen for many reasons.
Yeah.
That way, there's not just trial de novos every time someone is unhappy with the outcome.
Do you want to give your top 2 reasons why we would like to be a court of record?
That is my number one, and I think it's a better.
What's a trial de novo?
Oh, I'm sorry. So, for instance, if someone has a CDL, a commercial driver's license, and they're charged with a citation, a speeding citation, they're not eligible for a deferral or for a driver safety course, and they can lose their commercial license having a conviction. In that case, they'll often, because we are not a court of record, they can enter a plea of guilty, appeal it, and it's an entirely new trial because we're not a court of record. They would start over from scratch as if what happened with us didn't happen at all. Travis County is very busy. Consequently, they don't pick up a lot of Class C misdemeanors and take traffic citations to trial. So it's very easy to get them dismissed that way. And I'd like to see our officers that work hard to build the cases, have them, go forward for a reason and not just be circumvented.
What's your number 2?
That was it.
Number 2, I think it would be a good look for the city.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
How is our collection rate going? I
How
know
much?
our collection rate. I know a few years ago we had to part ways with a particular company. How's the new company coming along?
I believe that they're doing way better than what I know. I have Purdue in my previous court, and I see letters and cards coming in from MBVA, and I'm very happy with them. They're constantly checking on us. On the first, they're calling me to get their list, and if I have any questions about a report, they're right there answering. So the rate, like I said, I'm putting together data to get actual numbers on every specific item within the court, as far as cases, files, compliance, collection fees, and all that. But I feel that it's better than what I had. I can tell you that right now, or better than what I know. I had 3 other collection agencies, and MBVA is up there.
Do they have a?
Sorry. Do they provide collections in other jurisdictions, to your knowledge?
MBVA?
Yeah.
Yes, they work with JPs, and it's not just with municipal courts. I know that they have different fields. They're big with JPs, and they have the city of Austin, which is, it's like huge. Yes.
Do they have an integration point within Code 9? Do we just dump stuff out of that to them?
No, but they have.
Or does that come from Spillman? I get confused.
Yes, no,
Or
Spillman
from
is the
unis.
tickets.
I don't even know.
Yeah, I know. You see, that's why I'm taking my time with my clerks, because it is the same thing. It's not easy to come in and say, hey, all of this is going to be new, including the software. It's hard.
But I guess my point is that process of getting the information, the data to them is automated in some way.
We connect. Yeah, it's not a Zoom thing, but we connect,
You
and
don't
it's
print out a
the
bunch
files.
of paper and send them a big stack of paper
No,
and say,
no,
here.
sir. Everything is done electronically.
Okay.
Yes, everything is done electronically. We pull reports out of Encode, the list, collections, and everything is sent electronically.
Perfect.
3
Thank
big files every month.
And then I presume that they give us information back?
Yes,
And
I
we
asked.
import that?
I asked for reports and all to make sure that my numbers match their numbers.
Perfect. Beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, lady. Our next item is executive session item, consultation with legal counsel pursuant to Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, on a matter in which the duty of the attorney of the governmental body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with the Texas Open Meetings Act, to wit, discussion about legal concerns and available options related to various issues with the implementation of SB 2038, release of area by petition of landlord or residents from extraterritorial jurisdiction. We are in executive session.
I need one more.
Need one more.
There's Jim.
Big snap.
So close.
All sides. All sides.
Oh,
We have 4?
No, we just won.
Waiting on the fourth.
There we go.
There we go. We are back from executive session. No action was taken. At this point, we will adjourn the work session and re-adjourn in just a few minutes. Thank you.